Hello.
No, stop.
Hello. Hello. I'm trying. Hello.
And welcome back to Party Trick Astrology. I'm Nina.
I'm Shaina.
And this is the third house.
Ooh, third house, because the Gemini mercurial quality to it.
Yes.
We're in our first of the,
Cadent.
Yes.
Houses.
I had a blink.
No, I had that the other night. I was like falling asleep and I was like, this is what I think about when I go to sleep. You got angular houses, you got succeeded houses, and what are the other houses?
Well, a succeeding house is like, hey, you got your angular house, let's support you.
Yeah,
let's support you to succeed. And the Cadent is like, okay, you got the support. Let's use this house to move you into the next angular house. So basically, the succeeded and Cadent houses are just accessories to the angular houses.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. It's like, if you don't have your planets in an angular house, you have your planets in like a totally wasteful, like boring, like a pointless house.
Which isn't true, because every house has a very large purpose, and the third house plays a hugely impactful purpose on, I think, building who you are. It represents your community, right? And who you are, and your neighborhood, and your lower education learning, and how that affects you affects the rest of your life. It shapes who you are going into the rest of your life. If you have some trauma going around your neighborhood or your early childhood, that's going to follow you wherever you go later in life till you're dead.
So let's recap. You're born. You come out, you have a first impression.
People are like, oh, you're so insert first house here.
And then you're like, wow, I have hands. I can do things. I have a blanket and teddy bear and I'm a kid.
Yeah, self-worth. This is what I value. This is who I am. This is what I identify with.
Yes. Then it's like, okay, kids, time to go to school.
And you're like,
oh wow, it's a whole new
world. So how you see your community for the first time, how you view schooling, the kind of child you were in school, if you were good at school, bad at school, if your teachers liked you, if you didn't like you, how well you learn and process information, your learning ability, all that stuff is thrown all into the third house.
It's kind of, when you start going to school, it's when your parents kind of take a step back, They're like, let's just see what this kid does. Let's see how he interacts with his kids. Siblings is also part of the third house. Shaina wouldn't know because she doesn't have any.
I wonder how Leo got in my third house.
You're kind of coming more into your own, but obviously as it's your first time sort of coming into your own, kind of being a little more independent. It is an air sign ruled house. You kind of just lost all the security of the second house. And you're like,
this is new.
This is new. So if you have energy in the third house, you're always searching for that. You have this kind of energy of searching for the new, of always being curious. Oh, this is new. I know a little bit about it, and then searching for the security, searching for more information about that.
Yeah, and it rules lower level learning, so you think of like K through 12. Above that is the ninth house.
The important learning, one might say. The stuff you have to do.
It can also talk about walking and talking. Were you fast at learning how to walk and talk? It can also talk about like how you approach learning new things. Were you curious? Were you excited to learn new things? Were your parents like, oh my gosh, yesterday they couldn't do this, today they can, this is crazy, they just want to do all this stuff? Or were you more stubborn? Were you
slow to learn?
Were you slow to learn? It can also show learning disabilities.
Yeah. Speech impediments. Did it take you a while to start talking?
Yeah. It shows siblings, and so it shows kind of what your relationship with your siblings were. Was it positive? Was it negative? Did they teach you a lot of stuff?
Kind of maybe how you view your siblings. I have my third house in Virgo, and my brother is a Virgo rising.
And it can also be, if you're an only child, you don't have siblings, so it could be what you want to teach everyone else. And that's why only children can kind of get the thing of a know-it-all, because they just are like, I don't have anybody to teach this to, let me teach this to anybody that I can.
Yeah. Also, your concerns in your community. Are you, and this is kind of where you can see, only child habits.
Yeah.
Shaina has Leo in the 3rd house, and she's an only child. I don't see a lot of only child traits in Shaina, you know, the typical like spoiled or, or this and that, but she is kind of particular.
Yeah, you can tell that I was not raised around people my age. I'm used to being the youngest around a bunch of adults. Like, that's where I feel comfortable. And in that, it's a very different kind of dynamic. And I'm used to that dynamic of you're quiet, you don't say anything, and then people ask you things about yourself, and you say it as fast as you can, and then you shut up. You know, and that's a very like Leo in the 3rd house thing. It also shows what you want to talk about, what you want to teach to people, and what piques your interest. You also see your community and your neighborhood, so how you interacted with it. If you have something like Aries, you're going to be a much more individual based person. You're not going to be as concerned with your neighborhood as somebody with like Gemini in the 3rd house is going to be all about that neighborhood. It can show if you moved a lot. Like, I have a fixed sign in my 3rd house. I was raised in the same house that I grew up in. But if you have a much more mutable sign, you might have moved. Or like Nina has Virgo, which is a mutable sign in her 3rd house, and she was raised between 2 different places.
You can behave differently at school versus at home.
Yes.
That's the differentiation of your 4th house cusp ruler and your 3rd house cusp ruler. Mine happened to be the same. So I have Virgo in the 3rd house. I was such a know-it-all. I wanted to be the best at everything. Oh my god. Anytime that there was a chance to like hold a flag for an assembly, my teacher would be like, okay, whoever's sitting the nicest and sitting up straight and blah 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 is going to hold the flag for the assembly. It was totally rigged. It was totally played on favorites. You know the Princess Diaries where Julie Andrews teaches Anne Hathaway how to sit? I took my like sitting straight out of those lessons. I'd be like, please, 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 let me hold the assembly. Please, please, please. I wanted so much. I don't know if you did this in public school, but we
because Nina went to an art school.
Yeah, we would have to line up for assemblies. I have a really specific weird memory, right? Maybe because I have Virgo in the 3rd house.
That memory bank.
When I would get to be the first in line, which was never as much as I wanted to be, I was so preoccupied with people not butting me.
Cutting?
I would literally put my hands out like this.
Oh my god, what a little nerd.
Like, no butting! No butting, I'm the front of the line. I had like no shame. Or it can also have to do with the environment that you were raised in. So Dan,
my roommate,
he has a Scorpio rising. Okay, so he had Capricorn. He has Capricorn in the 3rd house. He grew up going to a Catholic school, and he found it very oppressive. It's not something that he leans into. Whereas I know someone who has Pisces ruling their 3rd house, went to a religious Christian, I don't remember the denomination school, and it wasn't the same experience.
Yeah.
Like, he still resonates with Christianity and that spirituality. It's the same thing, but 2 different experiences.
You can also see how your teachers were kind of like in younger schools. Like, I definitely had very Leo-like teachers, and I grew up in a very performative arts atmosphere. Like, I was always doing dancing, and I was always doing piano, and I was always invested in the arts, and everybody in my neighborhood, we'd put on dances, we make up dances together, we put on shows.
Whereas I felt very criticized by my teachers, and when I would play, I would literally like have notebooks and I would play homework.
Yeah. You can see how you'll take on homework responsibility and how you'll do with that kind of stuff in the 3rd house as well. Like, if you were to have something like Pisces, you're probably not going to do very well with homework. Or if you have something with Aquarius, you might be like too smart for homework.
Or you'll do the assignment without really doing the assignment.
You can also see how much you liked group projects. Like, I was never a group project person. I just wanted to work with myself, Leo in the 3rd house. But if you have like Libra in the 3rd house, you're going to be all on that group project shit. Virgo in the 3rd house, she probably did everything for all the group projects.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can see how our 3rd houses play out when we do these videos and how we speak. Nina will sometimes has gotten a few times, like, people think she's a Virgo rising, but that's just because she teaches in a very Virgo way, because that's how she learns. You can see how well of a teacher you'll be as well. Even though that is kind of seen in the 9th house, there is a way that you...
It's a different kind of teaching.
It's a different kind of teaching. My autism comes out a lot with my 3rd house in Leo, because I'm only going to want to talk about the things that interest me when things things don't interest me, I flatline and I space out. But that doesn't have to mean about me. It just has to interest me. It can be about you. If you interest me, I'm gonna listen. But if you don't interest me, no.
Whereas a lot of my communication comes from wanting to help people, and I find, like, especially because Virgo is a mutable sign, I find that I'm really easily sucked into someone, even if I'm trying to do something else, someone will be like, tell me about Sagittarius men.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I'm invested in that.
Completely
like,
feels almost obligated
Yeah.
to. Yeah. Whereas I'll tell you if I want to. But if I don't, you're not getting shit. Malefic planets being there, which is what we talk about, it can be restriction in your upbringing in your community. So
in that specific area of your development.
Yeah. So maybe when you go out, those planets are going to be activated by experiencing those things you never got to.
Yeah, if you have issues going on in your third house, really it is an indication of once you get to your ninth house, once you get out of lower education into higher education, you might gain more confidence in that. Or if you have things in the ninth house, then it could be that, like, the third house isn't a great area for you. Getting to the ninth house is where you want to get.
You really blossom and bloom when you're out of school.
Yeah. I can't really think of that many negatives to someone with third house energy, if that is your concentration. But I think if you take a nice planet and you put it in the third house, it's a recipe for something pretty good, I think.
For the most part, I agree, but there's also a duality side of the third house, and so anything in it, because Mercury is all about duality, so there's kind of always that shadow side there. Excessiveness and overconcentration, anxiety, and unrest, that's also there. This is where, you know, lying and promising more, and you can really look to your third house to find if people said you were smart or dumb growing up.
Yeah.
People said my dad was smart and he has positively aspected Jupiter in there.
I think the biggest differentiation when you look at the third house and the sixth house, because they're both ruled by signs that are ruled by Mercury, is that Gemini is the day ruler of Mercury,
right,
and Virgo is the night ruler of Mercury. So while both can lend themselves to a bit of anxiety, a bit of overthinking with energy in either of those houses, I just see a lot more positivity in the third house.
I agree,
in terms of
it's
being
a lot
curious.
Easier house, yeah.
I think
to digest.
Curiosity is like a very great quality I find in people. Kind of two takes on something in the third house versus the sixth house. In the sixth house, you might be like a serious reporter and you get very anxious and stressed out about it. Where, like, in the third house, you might be a journalist who covers the Golden Globes, covers the Oscars. Like, oh my god, I got no sleep because I was covering the Golden Globes and then I was covering The Bachelor and blah blah. But it's still fun. Whereas in the sixth house, like, I am so stressed out. I didn't get any sleep because I was working and blah blah blah. So I think the third house is sorry to like pinpoint these two and be like, this is bad, this is good. I just see a lot of positivity in the third house.
And also the third house can show how popular you were in school. Like, I think of somebody with like a very Venusian sun positive Libra even. Third house is like those people that peaked in high school, were so popular with the hottest shit, and then just kind of disappeared and fizzled out. I just think it's the house where you can see if people are gonna peak in their younger years.
But it is like a good place to have those kinds of planets because it's like, you got it, you know? It's like once you've graduated high school, then you probably feel much more secure in those things. And then you can spend the rest of your life kind of like expanding on other things.
It could, yeah, I think that could be one thing, or it could be you feel like you have almost already left it. You know what I mean? Like you moved on and you're like, might have trouble searching for those things later in life.
Yeah.
Because you can only find them in lower level schooling or in your community or at home. And so this is why people with like sun in the first house or something are gonna stay where they were born a lot. They might move out for college and they might go, no, I want to go back to my hometown because that's where my happiness is. That's where my ego is. That's where my charm is. That's where this is. Or if you have like a malefic planet, you're going to want to stay as far away from your hometown as possible. And going to your hometown will bring up just these really bad memories and this really bad energy in you that you don't want and don't have anywhere else.
Or it can also mean that you, if it's a positive kind of experience, that you just kind of carry a more jovial energy to you.
Yeah. So let's get on to the planets.
Yeah. Pretty much it goes one of two ways. theme of the video.
Yeah.
So sun in the third house. With your sun being your ego, having it in your third house, obviously you're gonna have that quality of being a very curious, knowledge-seeking kind of person. But the emphasis with the sun there is that it's kind of what your ego is rooted on. It's kind of you're really wanting to showcase your smarts or learn things because it stimulates your feeling of being worthy.
I think this kind of third house sun person can be very popular around their neighborhood. This is somebody that really makes sure that everybody that they're around knows them. Everybody knows who they are in their job. Their school, everybody knows who they are in their school. Everybody knows who they are in their community. This is a weird reference, but I think of like Vince Staples. He references a lot like, I was known so well in my community before I got famous. Like everybody always knew me. He's very like obviously from Long Beach. Raps like he's from Long Beach. Very, I think of like a third house kind of rapper. I'm sure he has some third house stuff. I don't know. That's what I see. These are people very stimulated very easily, fast minds. They love learning new things. These are people that they got so excited when their parents taught them things and when they went to school and they started learning these little things, but they don't like to go too deep into anything because it's hard to find something that piques their interest enough that they can get concentrated on it.
It's ruled by Gemini, which is an air sign, so there's not too much attachment to it. Of course, you can be involved in community projects, gain a sense of fulfillment from working in something to do with your community, not even like your community, but something that involves an ensemble. But at the same time, it's still kind of light. It's not like you're hooking your all and everything into this. And also it comes with that curiosity of like, well, I've gained a lot of fulfillment from this endeavor and from being involved with this ensemble, but I'm gonna want to still keep exploring and seeing new things.
I think these people can be very annoying very easily, honestly, or they can get the rap for that. I'm not saying they are. You just kind of can be too up in other people's shit. You probably really like gossiping. You might feel like if something's happening down the street that involves you too, even though it doesn't. You can also probably be the person that like you come to work and you're like, I got everybody coffees with their names on it, personalized just for you because I know Susie likes decaf with 6 punts of cinnamon.
Kind of an earth sign interpretation of it. I'm like, as an air sign, I'm like, awesome! I do want to hear all the little facts. Awesome! I do care that you paid attention when I said that I like decaf with 6 pumps of cinnamon, you know?
I think it's weird. I know that's just my earth sign interpretation. Yeah. You were definitely somebody who made yourself known in the classroom, raised your hand. Like, I had Leo in the third house and I always hated how much I raised my hand and I would always talk in class, but it was like some uncontrollable force was making me. That's honestly how I felt in school. I was like, why do I always talk? I'm a Cancer rising. I'm embarrassed. I hate it. But my Leo in the third house is like, gotta raise my hand and say the answer.
Yeah, same. I was like, why am I so bossy?
Moon in the third house. My mom has this, and I have a very close friend that has this actually. These people are very into the community. They have to have some kind of outlet that they emotionally connect to. Like they're both creative people, so like one of my friends has always had a dance studio that she knows everybody. It's her home, it's her place, it was her home away, like more than school was. Now she's obviously out in the world, right? And she still has this like yoga studio that's her place. They know she's close there. Everybody knows her. Like for her birthday, everybody had this birthday celebration at this yoga studio. That's very Moon in the third house. Moon in the third house is also going to tell everyone about their emotions.
Yeah.
These are the people that you meet them and they're like, let me tell you the craziest thing that happened to me in my entire life. And you're like, I didn't know I needed to know that. Okay. Your emotions just flip-flopping like crazy, overthinking them. And that could be that duality of you overthink everything so much that you kind of come across as crazy because you're a little bit like all around everywhere because you saw your mom more as like a friend than anything.
Yeah. And so it's just kind of like a very open relationship of expressing your emotions.
Your emotions, yeah.
Yeah. Mercury in the third house. It seems pretty obvious, right? It's just very intellectually stimulated by knowledge. You know, it's a very intuitive kind of pairing.
These are the minds that never stop. These are the people that love learning, love teaching, love talking.
Again, very curious.
And you can definitely see things from two sides very easily. So you can play devil's advocate a lot.
I feel like more than having anxiety, you're like overwhelmed. You're overwhelmed in kind of it can be in a fun way, it can be in a stressful way. You can be very overwhelmed because your mind is always going.
That's the better word for third house is more like overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And sixth house is more like anxiety.
Venus. Venus in the
Ooh.
third house. So that can, again, very popular in your social circles growing up. Very like crushable. Like you were that
It person.
yeah, that like middle school crush.
These people can charm the pants off of anybody, even too much so that they can kind of be a little bit, I can't think of the word, with their words. Like they know what to say to people.
Calculated in
to
love.
get what they want almost, because they can charm the pants off of anybody. They know how to use their words as like a tool almost.
In this situation, I really do see a lot of similarities of Venus in the third house and Venus in Gemini, kind of wandering eye, just because your Venus is placed in that community, so you just
Had a lot of relationships growing up, maybe had a lot of crushes,
and it has a lot to do with words, so that it is a charming talker.
You definitely have a love for learning and a passion for learning that a lot of people don't have, and you probably really loved school. You probably, if it is a positively aspected Venus, you were a big fan of your high school, your middle school, maybe you were like team captain or whatever that is. Mars in the third house, this is our first malefic planet, as we say. It definitely has that duality, because the positive of Mars in the third house is that you are such a seeker for knowledge. You want to learn. Whenever anybody teaches you things, you go, how do I ingest this information as fast as possible? You are determined to eat it all up. It can make it harder to really dive into things and really get a focused, streamlined attention, because your attention can be very easily shot from one thing to another, and you can very much, this is like a very ADD, ADHD kind of placement.
It could also be that you end up being kind of the school bully, just because your energy is placed there and you want to express it in that kind of way. When you're a kid, especially in that age range, it's not a house placement where Mars has the most control. So it can just like act very impulsively and aggressively in that kind of environment.
Or maybe as you were young, all you did was explore around and you were let free. You always need to know what is going on.
Yes. Jupiter next. Jupiter in the third house, it's just like, let me learn all the things. It's just expanding that and heightening your drink every time I say curiosity in this video, and thirst for knowledge, especially because Jupiter is that Sagittarian planet that is the knowledge seeker. We were just talking about this in our Drag Me, how that kind of energy can just be like a lot about the little things.
But it can be a little bit of a less comfortable placement, because Jupiter is ruled by Sagittarius in the third house. Jupiter wants nothing to expand, but the third house is a very, like, this is what the third house is. It's your
local
community. It's local. So you can't, it doesn't really let you get out as far as you want. Like, my dad has Jupiter in the third house, and he was like such a star student. He did so well in school. He's a Virgo rising. He was so smart. He took drum lessons all of his life. He was always a star drummer. Like, you could see that he had Jupiter in his third house. But he's always had a lot of trouble kind of like exploring outside of his neighborhood. Like, he moved to Vegas and has never wanted to go away from Vegas. He will not leave Vegas.
You know what? Also, your dad was a teacher, and Jupiter is the planet of counsel. So having that in your third house, you could be a lower school teacher.
My dad taught, like younger kids music, like K through 8 music. And he was definitely a teacher to me. Like, all he wanted to do growing up was just teach me anything that I could kind of situation. And he was always like, I am a great teacher.
Saturn, I think, is specifically going to speak to, well, Chiron too. Chiron as well, but speech impediments, being slower to speak, learning disabilities, and kind of a sense of restriction in your school life. It could really speak to a prominent authoritative figure in your lower education life that had a great impact on you. Maybe you raised your hand and asked a stupid question, or there are no such thing as stupid questions, but that person made you feel like it was a stupid question and you never raised your hand again. Basically just a hesitance, restriction in that kind of area of your life.
Your thought isn't as free-flowing as most. It's a lot more rigid, it's a lot more structured. You might have been told very specific rules, and maybe your school was a religious school. Maybe your school was probably you did not grow up in a very artsy environment. Grew up in a much more business, grew up in a much more get the grades, do the right thing, stay on the straight and narrow. You wear uniforms at school. You know, we study math, we study English, we study reading. You know what I mean?
Think before you speak, because you can say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
You feel like with Saturn in your 3rd house, you definitely feel like you can say the wrong thing and you don't want to say the wrong thing, so you definitely think before you speak.
Yeah.
And because probably someone like slapped you on the wrist because you said the wrong thing, and now you always think before you speak or you don't speak at all.
Yeah, you definitely wanted to be somebody who did not stand out in school.
Yes.
Very much to the back, and you have a lot of insecurities around how you speak, and you might be somebody who isolates themselves a little bit in the community. You don't really feel comfortable, maybe you feel it's a little unsafe. You might have trouble teaching people things. You might have trouble sharing knowledge. Maybe you're really smart in this one category, but you're not really good at explaining it to people, or you just think you're not. Honestly, with time, Saturn in the 3rd house can make you a great teacher because you can really explain things and be very thorough and be very patient. You might feel like you never know enough to tell anybody about something.
Yeah. And look to what's in your 9th house to see if that moving into your 9th house might help you with those kinds of things.
Uranus in the 3rd house. I've got to observe this a lot, obviously, because my roommate has this. It's a very brilliant mind, but a very unconventional mind, and this is somebody that's probably going to be a real, like, almost revolutionary at their school. Like, teachers are gonna find that these are the smartest kids with the worst grades. These are the kids shaking things up, asking the questions that shouldn't be asked. Like, Albert Einstein had this. These are very innovative thinkers. These are people that don't go A, B, C, D, they go A, Q, D, 2, and then they find flower. And then they find this incredible thing that only they can wrap their head around, that solved it kind of situation. Constantly questioning your thoughts, rethinking things. This might be somebody who moves a lot.
Yes.
A very changing environment, not very steady school system. You went from this school to that school to homeschool to here to there. Maybe you're
And definitely all the unconventional schools, like tried every single form
of schooling, and none of them probably fit you well. You learn very differently than the average person. So you might have been thought of as somebody who conventionally in this world is not very smart, but in the grand scheme of things, your brain works in a different way, and you are very, very smart.
After that is Neptune, which Shaina's roommate also has.
Yeah, maybe you went to a religious school.
Yeah,
I think this is the biggest indicator, because you also know somebody who has Pisces on the 3rd house and raised in a religious school. This is somebody who has a very foggy mental state. It kind of, and how you explain things and see things is very differently. You might see things in pictures and images, and to get them into words is a lot harder. And you might see stories in a very different way than other people.
Yeah.
My roommate might be like, hey, there's this movie, let me give you a short synopsis. And I'll go, that sounds great. And I watch the movie, I'm like, where did he see this?
Yeah.
This is his own, like, interpretation. And it's a really interesting interpretation, but, like, this is not the movie. It's one of the hardest things to have in the 3rd house, because it's squares.
But you will probably excel in the arts.
Yeah. Very creative mind. You can really think outside the box very easily, because you don't understand how to think.
You don't know what the box is.
You don't know what the box is.
Where's the box?
Yeah, and it can be
I'm already outside of it. I didn't even try.
These are people probably really bad at, like, writing essays, but great at, like, coming up with these vivid,
these can be also
imaginary
people
things.
who are very sloppy in the way that they present their work, because that's not the focus. These are people who are like, my thesis, here's a graphic.
Can I tell
pencil, just say, oh man, I spilled some cheese
stuff
on
over
it.
That's not vegan.
I was
Vegan
thinking
cheese.
of like vegan cheese.
You might have been raised in a very spiritual place, a very religious place, or a place that feels very much not connected to reality.
Yeah.
Like, you guys are not living in the real world here kind of situation.
Lastly, Pluto. This is, of course, a huge indication of your neighborhood, community life being uprooted and transformed. Huge indication of someone who moved a lot, changed schools a lot, changed neighborhoods a lot.
This could be a compulsive liar. Like, we had a friend who had this natally, and she was like,
She literally said that she was a compulsive liar.
Yeah, she said growing up, but that was even a lie, because it was now too.
Also, and you can't say I used to be a compulsive liar, because it is a diagnosis, so you don't just give up compulsive lying.
I don't know.
So
I don't know.
she was also lying about being a compulsive liar.
Yes, which
so
is
over-exaggerating her lie.
They can always feel like what somebody else is saying has something underneath it. They're big, deep divers and investigators into the word. They really put a lot of emphasis onto the words, which is why, like, Shaina, who puts no emphasis on words, can get into some trouble with people that do. They can have very intense thoughts, very deep thoughts, very scary thoughts. These people can very easily scare themselves, I think, and they can go to really dark places into their mind, and this can cause some kind of mental illnesses because Gemini rules thought and rules the mind, and so this can really plague the mind with a lot of ill things. In a more poorly aspected, Pluto can have very bad sexual fantasies, but they can also just be truth seekers in a good, more positive aspect.
Or even not in that scary of a way. In a subtle way, you can just find that these thoughts creep up into you.
Yeah, but you also want to find the truth of things. You do not like small talk. You're going to want to dive deep into the other person's intellect and into your intellect, and how deep can you get into this subject? How much can you investigate?
Other people you might find come to you to just kind of unload the things that they don't tell anyone else.
You're probably really like psychoanalyzing people and really figuring out what's at the core of these people's beliefs and what's at the core of society's beliefs even. You might have just had a very intense upbringing, intense school life, maybe very harsh, like this is what
Maybe you were bullied. Maybe that Mars in the third house person bullied you specifically.
But that is our long-winded third house video.
Yes. Speaking of the blog post, if you only have a cusp ruler ruling your third house and all this planet stuff didn't really resonate with you at all, there's a blog post link below that will just touch on the cusp rulers, every cusp ruler of the third house and what that might mean to you.
We are also about to start a astrology course, and it will be linked down below if you want to know more information about it or if you want to sign up for it, and it's going to cover a lot more information and we're going to get a lot deeper into stuff.
So especially if you're confused about some of the jargon or what really we were meaning, and also curious as the little third house person that you are.
You can check that out down below. It is very supplemental to the course, is that what you say? Or no?
This series is supplemental to the course because we wanted this to be available to the public.
That is all for our third house video. We will see you in our fourth house video, and
actually we won't see you. We never see you. Sometimes we see your icons in the live chats of our drag mates.
You'll see us in our fourth house video. Anyways, we need to end this video now.
Bye.
Bye. Why do you always do that? This is why I always say bye first, because I know that if you have your hand up for long enough, you're going to do that.
Yeah. It's a Gemini energy, it felt like.
That's true. It is very Gemini. Shall we say goodbye like a third houser? Okay, I had such a great mukbang with you guys. I just talked all about nothing and told you all about how to eat your noodles properly. Bye!
Bye! Woo!